My blissful gorgeous selves, Ayodhya movement is not just a mission for liberating temple of Sri Ramjanmbhumi from cruel clutches of jihadi Muslims, but it is a mission for recapturing our national identity, which requires liberation of Kashi and Mathura temples also. Our national identity is rooted in all-inclusive and assimilative cultural heritage of our ancestors, but now very careful with lessons learned from many deceits and bluffs from terrorist creeds and cults. Even we have successfully survived after 700 years of Islamic jihadi invasions and 300 years of Inquisition edicts and conversion edicts. Catholic Christians ruled when we got our political independence and even elected Prime Minister of our own choice, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, still through blackmailing Gandhi, a Muslim Jawahar Mia masquerading as Hindu, as Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru hijacked India's Prime Minister post, and he, along with communists, Muslims and other dire enemies of Hindu cultural heritage, continued destroying and distorting our religion, our culture, our civilization by hook or crook, misusing the Congress party, which has gained an image of a Deshadrohi and a criminal. Ayodhya movement evolved as corrective process to this 70 years long distortion, my dear friends. It does not end but starts for recapturing our national identity with building royally our Sri Ramjanmbhumi temple, which cannot be fulfilled without making it a pilgrimage spot, not tourist spot, remember, and it cannot be complete until complete cow protection is done by law. It is also true the policy of politics which Sri Ram established, which is also known as Ram Rajya ideal of politics, if it is studied, researched, followed by all different governments of all nations, then all problems, sufferings, poverty, climatic catastrophes and natural imbalances could be successfully controlled. It had worked for all in golden age of the Hindus in India, and there is no reason it will not work for the whole world. This is also a strong message of Ayodhya movement, my dear friends. In this modern world where self-destructive Islamic fundamentalism is compulsively spreading, jihadi terrorism along with Goa Inquisition edict, mass conversion monsters, in the name of education brainwashers, vehemently chronic temple destroyer crusader Christians with Europe, America, Australia, like huge countries, insensitive and cruel, corona-like disease producer, fetus eater, dog eater, bats eater and cow eater, dangerous communists with leftists and Naxalists are here with huge countries to support like China and Russia to devour the whole humanity. It is beyond human hands and brain to save humanness at all. Therefore, modern humanity desperately needs a warrior-spirited, a vegetarian promoting, kind and just, and most humane and most handsome concept of Bhagavan Sri Ram, concept of God, Bhagavan Sri Ram, of supersonic weapons with supernatural powers to protect us and love us and lead us to the path of everlasting joy and righteousness and pious conduct. Therefore, Ayodhya movement is very extremely relevant to modern men and women of all levels, all kinds. Equally dangerous, my dear friends, as these three, the fourth one is Nehru-Gandhi product pseudo-secularists. Illiteracy in Sanskrit, illiteracy in scriptures of any religion in their own language. Well-read only translations and opinions of Western Hindu hater scholars in English and other local language. They are very proud that they know all, they don't need anything else. Not ready to learn, open their heart, only to talk and talk and talk, favoring invaders, rapists, murderers, and backbiting, backstabbing their own society and culture they were born in. These most complex and confused traitor creed, men, women, young, old, and all ages being, is everywhere with Hindu names and dress, right in our own family, in the garb of holy men, in the garb of political leader and social reformer, even police and judges, and so many in responsible posts. Hindus can fight and win with about 3 monsters, but cannot fight with this 4th monster, because they are in our own society and family just like us. To protect your clear thinking, all you can do is to develop talent, to recognize in one glance and feel revulsion. Keep distancing, protect yourself from virus. They spread more dangerous than corona or cholera or AIDS. Okay? It is said, if you saved your life, you have possibility to win the whole world. I would say, if your right perspective, your discretion, your Jameel is murdered by wicked secularists, then your life becomes pointless. What is the use of 100 years long life of a lunatic or an AIDS patient or a traitor of nation? So, protect your mind from being corrupted by secularists, my dear friends, but that is also very difficult for you to do, and you need the blessings of Sri Ram. So here comes Bhagavan Sri Ram to help us, to protect us from these 4 enemies, dire enemies of India. First is Muslims, second is Christians, third is communists, Naxalists, socialists and leftists, and 4th is these Nehru-Gandhi brand pseudo-secularists, my dear friends. Bhagavan Sri Ram's world-class government, the Ram Rajya, was so popular that it continued for 11,000 years. Don't worry, if you cannot digest it, you can take it as 1100 years. Okay, about 4,000 years ago, according to Old Testament Bible, Moses and people lived for 700 years. Since Pandavas and Sri Krishna lived 1,000 years before, for about 136 to 140 years, and stayed young till the end of their life, which means they could have lived longer if they could have wanted and tried. So, Maharana Pratap just 500 years ago was 7 feet tall, carrying 400 kilos of weapons and armor and shields, and single-handedly sliced 6 feet tall commander-in-chief of King Akbar in 2 halves with his horse in a single slash of his sword. So, how powerful he was. So we can estimate Krishna and the Pandavas about powerful as him is 9 feet tall, just 5,000 years ago. Since Bhagavan Ram lived about 86,650 years ago, he must have been about 14 feet tall. If it is too much to handle and digest, take it 10 feet tall. So 10 feet tall Bhagavan Sri Ram, living for 1100 years, lifelong youthful, is the highly loved king. How it sounds fantastic, isn't it? It's very interesting to know when Bhagavan Ram completed the mission of his life and wanted to depart from the planet Earth, all his citizens cried out to go with him. So Sri Ram was so kind and so loving and friendly that he agreed to take all of them with him. My dear friend, you cannot take your $1 million with you when you die. You cannot take even a single book, a single pen to write. And Sri Ram agreed to take not only himself, not only his family, but all his citizens of his capital. The dazzling celestial plane materialized and came and took all of them in it. So Ayodhya became empty just after the disappearance of Bhagavan Sri Ram. And their sons, means Sita Ram's son, Kush. King Kush moved to Kaushambi near Prayagraj, new capital. His brother-in-law also inhabited a new capital, what is nowadays called Lahore. So how Ayodhya looked like then is beautifully described by great poet Kalidas in his book Raghuvansh. Well, at last, guardian angel of Ayodhya appeared in the dream of King Kush, requesting him to re-inhabit Ayodhya and live there, which he gladly did. Solar dynasty continued in Ayodhya again. We find in Mahabharata, a king from Ayodhya participated in Mahabharata war and was slain 5,000 years ago. We also find description of Princess Satya of Ayodhya fell in deep love with Bhagavan Krishna, a lunar dynasty born warrior who visited Ayodhya, won the test of Swayamvar and married Satya, happily married, and maybe in honeymoon or just escorting around the city, Satya took Bhagavan Sri Ram, escorted to ancient ruined palace of Kanak Bhavan, and Sri Krishna immediately desired to reconstruct the temple and install the deity. And he did so. This temple still exists and records are still there of this event, my dear friends. So this was 5,000 years ago. About 1,000 years later, that means 4,000 years ago, King of Ayodhya shifted to Shravasti, nowadays known as Sahet Mahet, where after 4 generations Prince Siddhartha was born, later who became Gautam the Buddha. Yes, he was also from Solar dynasty and from Ayodhya. So from Shravasti he visited Ayodhya, which had turned into wilderness those days, for deep meditations. After him, his followers Ashwaghosh, Anandavasu, Vishakha and other Buddhist saints came to Ayodhya jungles for advanced meditations. Vibrations were so high, so intense in the bank of Sarayu river that immediately led to deep meditation without effort. Please don't be misled by leftist historians. Our reliable historian is P.N. Oak. And he says Buddha was born 1800 years before Christ. That is 3800 years ago. And 500 years BC is the time of Adi Shankaracharya. And they are saying 500 years BC is Buddha's time. That's wrong. Since Muslims were unable to tolerate 900 years ago, long before Muhammad, their prophet, how can a Hindu invent a one God theory? So, with their leftist friends, they dumped Adi Shankaracharya to 700 AD, means 1100 years down below. They made false theory that polytheists, Hindus, took one God idea from Muslims. So please get out of the mud of false history if you have fallen in. Christian British appointed Macaulay and Maxmuller and a team of crook scholars with special orders from the British to not let history of India exceed the word of the Bible that said 7,000 years ago God created the world in 7 days and rested on Sunday. So, Indian history must not exceed to this. So, they started engineering the Vedic history to bottle up their millions of years of history within 1500 BC and not more than that. Recently I was talking to a professor of Allahabad and Prayagraj University, and he said they have come to the point of 1800 BC. Oh, no, 2100 BC. So, for all their long history, just stamp them as mythology, bunch of gossip, as they said. So, these crooks then evolved AIT theory, means Aryan invasion theory, and divided north from west, north from east, and east from west. And my dear friend, for evidences and details, please look into some blunders and missing chapters of world history and Indian history by P.N. Oak. So, Ayodhya movement is not just a mission of a small thing, but it is to recapture our national identity, my dear friends. Okay.